Okay, so we got a little bit of everything tonight. And because the theme for this month has been, so far, I mean, it's only the 5th, but we're just doing a little extra stuff for hands and feet and wrists and ankles. So we're going to start with a little bit of ankle rotation. So you're just going to need to sit down either on your bolster or on blocks or on your mat, just so that you can access your ankles in rotation. And what I usually do is just kind of hook one of my legs with my arm and then rock back enough that that leg comes up off the ground. And then you can pin down that leg so that you're not tempted to move your hip or your shin or your knee. And that way you can really get into a nice controlled rotation at your ankle joint. So just carve out a circle that's in a pain-free range of motion. As with a lot of things, movement-oriented, when we slow down, we can really communicate to our tissues. Our brain and our body become a little bit more connected, and it becomes more thoughtful and hopefully impactful. Let's go the other way. So I encourage you to go in slow motion through this progression. And then we'll do the same thing with the other leg. A little forklift to get that leg off the ground. And then start that circular. And it doesn't matter so much what the toes are doing, right? They could kind of pull back towards you when you're flexing, and you could point them down towards the ground in that opposite direction. And we'll go the other way. And then you can sit either in a seated cross-leg pose or a kneeling pose, depending on how you want your ankles. So obviously, if you tuck your legs underneath you like this, your front ankles are going to get a stretch. And if you like to sit cross-legged, that might be a little bit more sensation for your hips. Doesn't matter which base you choose, because we're going to be working with the fingers just a little bit. So let your hands either lay on your thighs or your bolster, if you have your bolster in your lap or something. And all we're going to do is shut our eyes down and sense our hands in stillness for a few breaths. And in your mind's eye, you could even visualize your hands and what they look like. And try not to be too judgmental about that, because the looks don't matter as much as the sensation, just like, again, with most things in life. What something looks like isn't the whole picture. We got to go deeper than that. So feel the warmth of your hands against your legs, or maybe they're cool. Notice the temperature. Notice the weight of your hands. Take a moment to acknowledge all of the beautiful things that your hands can do. Sewing, cooking, playing an instrument, expressing emotion, giving hugs and high fives. One day we'll be able to do that again. And then we're going to create little taps. You can look at your hands if you want to. We're just going to go index fingers only. And you're just going to lift and tap, just in a nice rhythm. It doesn't have to be fast or slow. Just find a rhythm that works. And see if you can hinge that index finger up off of your leg pretty high. And keep it as straight as it'll go. And notice if you can keep your knuckle down and all of your other knuckles down, but just lift your finger. And then do you notice any sensation in your forearm when you do this little finger tap? Let's move to the middle finger. Just the middle finger lifting and tapping. Notice if one finger likes to go a little higher. I'm noticing my left one doesn't get as high. I'm not quite as adept with my left hand, apparently. Do keep the rest of your knuckles rooted if you can, and just focus on the middle finger. And then we're going to go to the stubborn ring finger. This one is really hard to get to move on its own. Just do your best. And if you've never done this before, it's much more challenging than it would seem to be. And then we're going to go with the pinkies. Nice little taps. How much pressure is each individual finger placing back down on your body when you tap? Is one hand a little bit stronger, making more of an impact against your leg? And then we'll move on to the thumbs. Those generally move pretty well independently from the rest of our hand. And then we'll take it into a piano motion, letting the palms lift a little bit if they want to, so you're in a little bit of wrist extension, and then just travel through each finger. Nice little tapping, just like you do when you're impatient. Only tonight we're practicing patience. So if you were going pinky inward, go thumb outward for a little while. And vice versa. And then in your seat or your kneeling position, we'll take the backs of our hands towards our sides, fingertips pointing behind you. And we're in wrist flexion here. So there's just a little bit of a stretch, hopefully on the top part of your wrist. If you're feeling congestion or pain on the inside of the wrist, don't go quite as far with this one. And then you can shut your eyes again for a little bit and just focus on breathing. A slower breath, a more soothing breath, unrushed. Notice when you breathe where in your body you're sensing expansion or a swell, a shift. When we get stressed and uptight, we have a tendency to breathe pretty high in our chest and even up into our neck and shoulders. That's just part of our nervous system. The breath comes faster when we breathe up there. It's okay for short duration spurts. But for situations like this, we're hoping for not just a slower breath, but also a lower breath in the body. Don't restrict your belly, just let it be. Imagine that you could expand all the way around your trunk in 360 degrees. And then you're going to lay your hands open on your thighs and just relax. Look at the little creases on the inside of your wrist after that stretch. And if it feels all right, You can reverse and counter stretch the other direction, gently pulling your wrist into extension with your opposite hand. You can pull through the palm. You could also add in a little finger stretch by pulling through the fingers. Just barely finding your edge as usual. And as you find your edge, softly press back into your opposite hand. So we have a little engagement on both sides of your wrist. And switch. Gentle pressure in both directions. And then simply relax your hands in any natural position. It can be hanging by your side, they could be back in your lap. Let your shoulders fall. Try to find just a little space along the spine. And then we're going to move into a forearm version of tabletop position. So you'll come onto your knees, pad your knees if you want to. And lower your forearms to your mat. You could interlace your fingers and take the pinky side edge of your hand into your mat, or you could just parallel your lower arms if that feels better for you. We're going to work into the ankles here just a little bit. So stretch your left toes back and send your heel back as far as it goes. And then push into your toes and drive your heel forward. As you move through your ankle here, you can also create a little bit of support through the shoulders as if you were pushing and then pulling yourself into this little ankle stretch. Shoulders and arms push down and forward as the heel bone goes back. And then you're trying to pull your sternum forward as your heel moves forward. Maybe you can sense that around your shoulders and chest. If this is all going well in your ankle, you can make it more of a full rotation as you spin your heel all the way around and alternate between tucked toes and a flat foot on the top. If you're circling, go the other direction. And then let's set the knees just a little bit wider. Big toes can come closer to each other. Rock your hips backwards. And then if you have yoga blocks or a bolster that you wanted to set underneath you for child's pose, you could do that. Just let your arms be free. Bring your forehead either to the floor or another object, maybe even your hands. Take about 5 long breaths. Shift back up to your forearms and let's do the ankle smooshing with the right side now. We'll start with just a front to back glide. Toes pushing, heel pulling, and inviting in that energy from shoulders and chest as well. And then take it around into that full revolution, testing the edges of your ankle mobility, keeping it in your pain-free range of motion. If you're circling, go the opposite direction. It's not uncommon to hear some snapping and popping here, especially with the toes. My knee's popping too. I don't know if you can hear that. Sometimes the mic picks it up. Okay. And then we can take that child's pose again. This time, let's try legs squeezing together, if that works for you. And maybe the arms go behind us with the palms up. Two more breaths. Okay, so let's come on up to tabletop, and I'll have you just take a peek at this before you try to get into it so you don't have to crane your neck. This one could be done without yoga blocks. That would be less intense. The yoga blocks would actually probably make things more intense for you depending on how you use them, so you could choose to leave them out or not. The arms are going to be doing separate things. So we're going to be on our belly. And one block, if you're using it, would be beside your left arm. And you would take your left arm behind your back and just let your arm lay on that block. Or you could bump it up here to your shoulder and let your arm hide behind your back, palm facing upward. And then your right arm would be reaching out in front of you with your palm facing open, like you're serving somebody a bowl of soup. And your elbow could be on that block. And then your fingers would tap on your shoulder. So the right arm's reaching up and back over your shoulder, and your left arm's behind you in internal rotation. And then you can just lay your head wherever it lands. If you've got a towel or a blanket you wanted to put under your head, head could turn right or left. And if having your right arm up and over doesn't work, you could just use your right arm as a resting spot for your head as another variation that is also quite nice. And then I'm going to set my timer and we'll just be here for a couple minutes. Nice and slow, you're going to release your arms. And then we're going to shoot our left arm off to the side, straight out from our shoulder. And on this one, there are a couple of different ways you can set up the stretch. So lately, I have been turning my left arm inward so that my palm is facing upward. But you could also do this with your palm facing down or your arm bent like the cactus. And then from there, you're going to turn your head to the right. Place your right hand like you're doing a push-up. And then push with that right arm and roll yourself towards your left side a little or a little more, depending on how much stretch you want in that left front shoulder and chest. Now your legs can stack or stagger, and your right leg could step behind your left if you like that. It's easy to go almost too far with this one because our shoulders are so mobile. So I encourage you to do a little less than you think you want to, and then maybe ease into a little bit deeper stretch as we progress with time. Make sure your neck feels supported in some way, or at least comfortable. If your head is coming all the way to the ground, just let it relax. Your right arm can stay in the push-up position just to kind of balance out the side lying position, or your right arm could reach back over your head with your palm facing the floor. And it can just relax there. You could also tuck your right arm behind you. So sort out what that right arm wants to do and then drop back into stillness. Observe breathing, stay curious about that. Feel the flow. So simple. About 3 more nice long breaths. And then travel ultra slowly as you come out of that shoulder stretch. And we'll create our Sphinx pose. Pretty chill Sphinx tonight, so maybe even sliding your elbows a little bit further away from your body so that you're not in a really deep back bend. Create a little tuck under with your pelvis. It's a posterior tuck, like you're trying to squeeze your bum towards the floor or tuck your tail. And then our shoulder blades are going to slide around on the back side here. So it feels like kind of a shoulder circle. 4 distinct movements made into the path of rotation. Up and in, and then downward and apart. And can you really focus this movement back on the shoulder blades rather than in the head or the neck? Reverse the direction of your rotation. Up and apart, down and together. Chest is just along for the ride. 2 more. Okay, let's move on to the second side. We started with that shoelace position of the arms. The left arm is forward, bent and tapping, or the left forearm's underneath your forehead. And then your right arm is reaching behind you, like someone has twisted your arm to come to this class. Back of the hand on your torso and the palm of your hand open. We'll set our timer. All right, nice slow exit strategy. Slide your blocks off if you were using them. Right hand, right arm is going to reach to the right, straight out from shoulder joint. Left hand is your push-up. Turn your head to the left. And then you decide how you want that right arm. If you want it turning in, if you want it turning out, or maybe bending the elbow. And then just tease the edge of that shoulder stretch. Satisfy your neck. roll slowly back onto your stomach. We're going to skip the Sphinx and just set up the hands for a push back. Pressing up to table. We're going to do just a couple seated poses. So here you will possibly want blocks or a bolster or some cushions. You may not need any of that, but it doesn't hurt to have it handy. And then I'm going to show you how to use a blanket around your ankles here. So even if you have like a big beach towel, whatever you've got, it's fine. You're going to start with a blanket that is folded approximately like this, or it could be even longer than this, but we want kind of a oblong rectangle. And then we're going to roll it up to create like a little taquito roll. So it's a skinnier roll than we normally have for like a supported fish pose. And we want it long enough that we can set that roll on top of our ankles and then hook it around the lower legs to kind of keep our feet and ankles supported in this butterfly position with the knees open. And then I'm going to show you a couple of ways you can hold your arms. Obviously, we're going to fold forward here eventually, but so when I was practicing this earlier, I tried it 3 ways. I tried it to just let my arms drape forward over my legs to fold. And then I also did a tuck under my lower legs. That felt kind of secure, palms facing open. And then I also did a backward reach with my arms and had my palms facing open. So maybe just sample those. And then if possible, you will want your head supported by something, whether that's a pillow or your hands, even in your forehead like this, prayer pose, thumbs to the third eye, just so that your head isn't just hanging out in space. Yeah, forward butterfly, little stretch for the spine and the hips. Drop your eyes closed and just try to be. Set up your hands so that they can help you come back up to an upright seat, and go super slow with this. Let your head be the last thing to come up. Think of stacking your spine vertebra, one on top of the next, until you come up to vertical, and then the head lifts. All right, for this next little bit, you probably won't need any equipment, so you can just set that off to the side. And we're gonna make our pinwheel legs. Sometimes I call this a Z sit. Your left leg will be forward, and your heel can be pretty close to your body, and then your right leg is gonna kind of tuck beside or behind you. And that foot can also be fairly close to you. So depending on how your knees feel, you can adjust for that. It doesn't have to be real specific. Your left hand will be supporting you off to the side here. And then we will roll the chest open and reach our right arm sort of behind us. Maybe your eyes can follow the hand or lead your hand, as the case may be. And then sweep your right arm across you. Reaching right hand to the left, using your left arm for a kickstand. And we'll just do 2 more like that. Breathing comfortably, slowly, smoothly, mobilizing through the chest, the shoulders, our rib cage, and maybe just a little bit of firm pressure down with the legs, both of them, so we can feel a little more stabilized below. And then after this last round, I'm going to give you a couple choices. You could fold your trunk forward over your left leg somehow. If you wanted to use your props, you could. But the other thing you could try is to stay tall in your spine and turn your chest towards the back foot side. So turning to the right. So either one of those is good. We're only going to take like 5 to 8 breaths here. I like to use my left hand to kind of push my left leg towards the earth. And then that also gives me a little kind of springing upwards of my spine to create some length vertically. That benefits the twist. Two more breaths. And then it will open up just towards the side of your mat, or however you can still see, and arrange yourself on your mat. Legs pretty wide, knees bent, arms just snuggled towards the inner thighs or knees, and just a slight squeeze back. Squeeze with the legs and try to gently push outward with your arms, just for 5, 4, 3. Try to stay broad through your collarbones so your shoulders don't collapse inward. Last 2. And then we're going to switch out the legs and find that V-sit. This time with the right leg tucking forward in external rotation, and the left leg tucking off to the side there. Right arm can be your kickstand, wherever it lands is good. Left arm, gaze open, rotate to the left, and then crisscross and follow your gaze to twist right. Press your legs down. 2 more times. And same choices as before, upright twist left or a forward fold over your front leg. Being gentle with that pressure downward, right hand against right leg. No forcing, just testing. Now the rest of our work is going to be done on the floor. So let's come on down. Get onto your back and start with your knees bent. Your feet placed on the floor and your feet placed pretty wide. I would try to go towards the outer borders of your mat. You can always adjust. Your arms can spread out like wings to the side, or they can just lay on your torso or next to you. We're going to get both legs moving into wipers. So as your left leg fans open, close your right hip. Let your right knee travel inward and come onto the inside edge of your foot. And you just need to go as far as your hip will allow without forcing or pushing. And then your right leg's going to lead you open. Left leg's going to travel inward to stretch. Let's try to keep it super slow and controlled. There's a tendency to kind of just let the legs flop and drop from side to side, and I know that would probably be fine, but it's not super educational for the brain when we move like that. So conscious is better. More neural drive. And notice what the feet are communicating here. The ankles might be turning a little bit. The foot might be twisting a little bit, depending. And then if you wanted to add in rotation in the neck, your head could turn either the same direction as your legs or the opposite direction of your legs. Slow motion. Eyes could be open or closed. Let your pelvis rock as much as it wants to. You don't need to restrict anything there. This is about freedom, exploration, discovery. Let's do one more set, right and left. And then if you have socks on like I do, once you complete your last cycle of windshield wipers, remove your socks for this next bit, and we can put them back on for Shavasana. I hate to do it because it's cold in this house, but my toes will thank me later. So option one, you're going to keep your hips down on the ground and just invert your legs. They don't have to be straight. Option two, use something like a yoga block or a rolled up blanket or towel and slide it underneath your tailbone or your sacrum. Be sure it doesn't land in your lower back. We want it down in the bony parts, the big flat bony part of your low spine. And then again, you take your legs up. And then we're just going to work with the toes a little bit. So we can't use our hands, it's just too far away. So we're just going to do what we can with the muscles of our feet to move the toes. So first, just wiggle them however you want to. but try not to move your ankles too much. Just wiggle your toes only, whatever that looks like for you. Now think of squeezing your toes towards each other, trying to close the gaps between any of your individual toes, as if there was no light able to get through the spaces between your toes. There is such a thing as toe adduction, and that's what we're doing now. Imagine you had your feet in shoes that were nice and tight. It's something I try to avoid, but cramming your toes together. Now we'll do just the opposite. Open your toes away from each other really wide. And again, we're trying to keep the ankles pretty quiet and just focus on the toes. Spread them out as much as they'll go. They might also be flexing towards you. That's totally fine. Can you get your big toes to move more towards each other without changing the position of your ankle? Now you're going to try to send your big toes away from you, and at the same time pull the 4 smaller toes towards you. And that may not happen, but if it's not happening in your body, can you just create a connection as if you were just imagining it to happen? And notice what you're feeling in your arch as well. Now let's do just the opposite. Send your 4 toes away from your body and see if you can curl your biggest toes towards your nose. We'll do that set again. Big toes forward away from you. 4 toes pulling back. It's not uncommon to feel a sense of cramping or discomfort here. You can try to breathe through it, or you can just let it go. Now the big toes come towards you. Send your littlest toes forward away from you. Last time. And then just wiggle the whole ankle and foot into some circles. It can be super random. They don't even have to be doing the same thing. Notice that sensation of the ankle circles traveling down your lower leg. Potentially even seeing a little movement around the knee. And then you can replace your feet on the ground. Lift your hips up off that block if you've got one and set it off to the side. Gather up your knees in your hands. Just like a slight tucked position. Thighs towards your torso. And then we're going to let the hips move in circles, assisted by the hands and shoulders as much as you want them to. You could also do this without your hands. Just draw some circles, both directions, playing with reversing out, letting your legs mirror each other or letting them do the same thing. Let's keep a hold of our left knee or shin or thigh, whatever you can get a hold of, and stretch your right leg down any amount. Could be straight, could still be bent. As you extend your right leg, if it's going straight, give your bum a little squeeze. And then this is going to lead us into a twist. So I personally like to shift my hips a little to the left before I take my legs to the right, so you can try that too. And this left leg can come across to any amount. There's no real advantage to pulling real hard to get deeper, so just notice where your body instinctually wants to pause. And let yourself be there for a little bit. If you wanted to slide an object between your legs, that can be a nice way to support yourself. Or even wedging something underneath your right leg is fine too. Spine twist. Left shoulder stays heavy. Observe breathing. Always feels different for me in a twist. You can keep your arms out like wings, or you can reach them over your head, potentially grasping onto your elbows or your upper arm bones and framing your head. One other nice thing that I've been doing lately is cradling the back of my head with my hands interlaced and then sliding my thumbs down into my neck. There's a little divot there, a little valley that my thumbs just fit perfectly in, and then I'm just going to rub my neck a little bit. Working my thumbs up a little higher into the base of my skull. Sampling that. Just enough pressure, but not too much. Take an inhale. Fill up all the way. Hold your breath in as you escape the twist. Pull your left leg back around. Exhale your breath. Come to your back. Resituate everything. And then squeeze your right knee in towards your body. Left leg can stretch out if that feels good. And then we'll make our twist. Little shift to the right with your pelvis, maybe. And then find your leg arrangement that suits you. Option to change your arm position to one of those other shapes if you like. It's okay to stay. As you finalize these last couple of breaths in your twist, your next task will be to organize your body for a resting pose. And that doesn't necessarily have to be in Shavasana, but it could be. Use any of your support objects to create more comfort, more ease, more contentment. Maybe you need your socks back on or your sweatshirt. Closing the eyes or covering them can help bring your attention inward. Observing the body at rest. Keeping mind occupied with that. Mind watching and feeling for breathing. Just letting it flow naturally without direction or manipulation. Connect your awareness to your lower limbs, starting at your toes, soles of your feet and heels. Observe your ankles, let them rest. Travel your awareness up the bones of your legs into your knees, front and back. And then notice your thighs, all sides. Connect to your potential power around your pelvis and your seat, your hips. Observe the soft flow of breath around your belly, midsection, rib cage. And take your attention to your shoulders, arms, elbows, wrist sensation. Sense that you have hands on your body, but let them relax. Feel around neck and throat, jaws, cheekbones and eyes, lips, tongue, nose, forehead. And just letting go now. And keep your body at ease for a little bit yet. Enjoy the rest. Let your mind be a witness to that. On the inside, we'll just kind of notice the expansion of breathing. Lungs inflating from bottom to top, top to bottom, inside out. And then a slower letting go of that air. Try to make it last, that exhale. Like a delicious dessert. Savor it. Take a renewing breath. Nice long pull. Healing, cleansing, clarifying breath. Not just for the body, but also the rest of your layers of being. Soft exhale, maybe make a light sigh in your throat. Let's take 2 more like that. A bit longer, more intentional, slower, more complete. And then begin your awakening movements however you like. Could start with fingers and toes, but that's not a requirement. Sometimes I just like to move my head a little bit. Create a little bit of rocking with the hips again. Wipers. Spine twists, cannonball roll, anything goes. And then once you do arrive into seated or kneeling, let's place the hands, one in front, ribs or belly, one towards the back, ribs or lumbar. And sense a front to back expansion with every breath that you take. It's obviously more noticeable to the front side, but with your hand back there, maybe you can make more of an imprint in the rear body. And then we'll wrap hands to the sides, fingertips or palms. Yeah, I like to really spread my fingers out so they cover a lot of ground. Pinky finger towards the back, maybe index finger towards the front, and again, a few nice long breaths. Keep it low, keep it wide and slow. Soft waves. And then you can either lay your hands softly in your lap, or you can take your hands together like a prayer. Perhaps planting a seed of intention for this evening, this day, this week. Instead of a wish or a hope, let's make it an I am statement so that it feels like a truth. Thank you so much for being here and practicing with me. It was my honor to guide you. Namaste.